Everybody here. One of the most intriguing questions in Shakespeare involves Lady Macbeth. And the question is, does the lady faint? In Act 2, Scene 3, as people gather at the castle and word begins to spread that the king is dead, the action begins to build, and suddenly Lady Macbeth is going to say, "Help me hence, ho," and on ho, one assumes she collapses on the floor, or as she collapses, somebody grabs her to stop her from actually going boom as she goes down. And there are passionate debates. Does the lady faint, or is it all an act? And until very recently, I assumed that it was all an act. That she sees Macbeth begin to talk about the murder, and he begins to speak faster and faster as he describes his view of Duncan's body. And the lady, listening to this, the manipulative lady, the cold-hearted, you know what comes next, who says things like, "A little water cleans us of the deed," dismissive of sin, dismissive of any notion of torment or conscience. She must, goes the reasoning, still be manipulative, wants to shut Macbeth up before he gives it all away, and distracts the attention of the watchers by fainting, but not fainting. And what I'm going to suggest to you is that that conclusion on my part is very sloppy thinking. It's a fundamental error. Because what I was doing, and I was sure of this, quite certain of this, what I was doing was I was looking at something that happens pretty much in isolation. I wasn't really thinking about that particular scene as it fit in to the progression of scenes around it. And that's one of the errors that you people have made on this most recent small piece of writing. The other thing, believe it or not, that I did was ignore the meaning of words and Shakespeare's consistent use of words, the same words, all the way through the play. So I made that mistake of taking Act 2, Scene 3, taking an X-Acto knife, drawing a little box around it, pulling it out, looking at it and saying, aha, sneaky lady pulls a joke, pulls a prank. Okay? So what I'd like to do today is show you why I am no longer certain that the lady fakes it. And I also want to show you the truth of that old idea that anything you think in English is right, you can't make a mistake. I've told you before that yes, you can. You can definitely make a mistake by doing exactly what I did, taking something out of context. But that if you really do look at the continuum, then yes, you can support completely opposite points of view. So in this case, in the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to demonstrate to you that yes, the lady really faints, and no, the lady does not faint. All right? Then it's going to be up to you to decide which suits your perception of the character. Now, before we get into it, I want to remind you of these two circles. Whenever you're writing about a piece of literature, thinking about a piece of literature, you are working within any one of a series of circles. So remember that. Right here, we have the specific action. So this is the scene or the chapter or the page or whatever. And this is This is cheap chalk. This is the narrative. Oh, by the way, when you're in teachers' college, they keep teaching you to write on the board like this, so you can never take your eyes off your students. I failed that lesson. All right, so you have the specific action. Then you move here. To themes. These, of course, are the concerns of the writer. What picture of society, what picture of the cosmos, if you will, what paradigm? Are you beginning to hate that word yet? Yeah? Okay. What paradigm rules here? And what do we know about the worldview that Shakespeare writes within? We know it is centered, so I'm going to go paradigm. We know that it is centered around and that he accepts the concept of a divinely ordered world. We know that God, the struggle between good and evil, and therefore things like conscience and guilt all play an important part in the way this man viewed the world. We also know that it played a huge part in the way those who would watch his works viewed the world. So we can't ignore it. Have we seen much evidence of this moving beyond the subconscious? In other words, have we seen much evidence of Shakespeare actually embedding this in this particular play? And yes, we have. We have things like stars hide your fires, where Macbeth, as he considers the killing of Duncan, very specifically calls upon the heavens not to watch. He wants to hide this from God. We have Lady Macbeth. In her soliloquy, make a very similar comment. That my keen knife see not the wound it makes, nor heaven peep through the blanket of the night to cry, hold, hold. So there's the whole notion of the divinely ordered cosmos looking down at this act and attempting to stop it. So we know through the repeated references to the great chain of being and that particular concept, the repeated use of the word nature, natural, things of this sort, that Shakespeare intends us to look at this play within this paradigm. And so does the lady faint. Now, one thing that we need to accept, just before we get into this any further. Okay. Here's Act 2, whoops, Scene 3. All right, I cannot do that. I cannot do that. This is our focus today. But in order to fully, I think, understand what's going on and answer this question, we need to be aware of Act 2, Scene